No one will hit you harder than life itself. It doesn't matter how hard you hit back. It's about how much you can take and keep fighting, how much you can suffer and keep moving forward. That's how you win. Let me tell you something you already know. The world isn't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it isn't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Every champion was once a contender that refused to give up. Most action is based on redemption and revenge, and that's a formula. Moby Dick was formula. It's how you get to the conclusion that makes it interesting. Study people's success stories hard. Study their failures even harder. If you're going to be a failure, at least be one at something you enjoy. If it's not broken, break it. That's how new discoveries are made. That's why everything that changes life is called a breakthrough. I learned the real meaning of love. Love is absolute loyalty. People fade, looks fade, but loyalty never fades. You can depend so much on certain people, you can set your watch by them. And that's love, even if it doesn't seem very exciting. I think there comes a time when you realize that you need God in your life, God's word, and the spiritual guidance that only He can give. For every guy, there is an opportunity to be a lot better than he thought he could be. We can't all be the star of the team, but we can be a star in our life. That's where you set your goal. If you make exercise your hobby instead of your enemy, it becomes your friend. It's the one thing that will never let you down. It will always be there for you, and it will always make you better than you were before. Remember, every time you go to the gym, every time you put the right supplement in your mouth, you're better than you were 10 minutes ago. The irony is most people know what to do, they just don't do what they know. Remember, the mind is your best muscle. Big arms can move rocks, but big words can move mountains. Ride the brain train for success. If you don't have a mountain, build one and then climb it. And after you climb it, build another one, otherwise, you start to flatline in your life. We do two things in life: we race the clock, and everything is a struggle. One way or not, it's a metaphorical battle all of the time. I think everyone has a certain kind of formula in their life. When you deviate from that formula, you're going to fail big or you're going to win big. I am not the richest, smartest, or most talented person in the world, but I succeed because I keep going and going and going. When I was in junior high school, the teachers voted me the student most likely to end up in the electric chair. When life hits you pretty hard, you can go into a dark corner. Every time I failed, people had me out for the count, but I always come back. I believe there's an inner power that makes winners or losers. And the winners are the ones who really listen to the truth of their hearts. Real love is when you become selfless and you are more concerned about your mates or children's egos than your own. You're now a giver instead of a taker. The problem is, your ego sometimes tells you that you can do many things. But sometimes it's best to stay focused and be honest with yourself. Don't be gullible, use life before it uses you. Understand there are no free lunches, and for every action you take, there's a reaction. I think that gravity sets into everything, including careers, but pendulums do swing and mountains do become valleys after a while. If you keep on walking. When you find the right components in your life, the right people, that gel with you, then you feel as though you're invincible. It may be a fallacy, but you at least feel as though you can take all that life has to dish out. I think kids growing up, if they were picked on and feeling inferior at 12, they're going to feel that way at 72. You just deal with it better. I'm serious. Age is a state of old mind. It gets to a point where if you get old enough, you forget how old you are, and that's the best thing. And then you walk around kind of like in a fog. Everybody has anger or regret in them one way or another. They all try different things to get it out. Some people go to psychiatrists. Some paint pictures. Some people talk it out. There is an age-old proverb that really does hold true in every area of life, in relations between nations and right down to the most subtle and sophisticated or most unstable and unsophisticated relations between lovers, and it is this: they took kindness for weakness. I keep trying to tell people. I said, at 40, 45, you're at that crossroads. You really are there. And it's not like you can have gain without pain, but this is it. The days are like when I wrote this whole thing about, in the beginning of my first magazine. I said, if you live to be 75 years old, that's 3,900 weekends. That's it. Now if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits, and not pointing fingers saying you isn't where you want to be because of him, or her, or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. I just like stories about redemption, about getting a second chance at life. I think everyone in the world has a few major mistakes they've made in their lives, and if they could just go back and correct it. But, unfortunately, they don't get a chance. Usually, it's almost impossible. Clothing is the first step to building a character. I tell people diets don't work. And I don't care what they say. I have tried them all. It would be great to be able to pass on to someone all of the successes, the failures, and the knowledge that one has had. To help someone avoid all the fire, pain, and anxiety would be wonderful. I really am a manifestation of my own fantasy. Racing's very much like the world of acting. You have your front runners, and you have guys that are there for the long race, and you have other guys that block for other people, that are called supporting and character actors. It's all the same kind of situation. I'm not handsome in the classical sense. The eyes droop, the mouth is crooked, the teeth aren't straight, the voice sounds like a mafioso pallbearer, but somehow it all works. I have tremendous respect for fighters, and I always tell people that boxing in movies is one thing, but when you get into the ring for real, even the worst heavyweight in the world is going to murder you. You've just got to appreciate the pain and the suffering and the glory and skill that goes into what they do. That's why I love the sport so much. I don't fall into the physical manifestation of a man of letters. So I guess people assume the scripts are delivered to me under the door. To know that the odds are so high that only through the perishing of your life will the minions survive, that's love. That's heroism. The more I go to church and the more I turn myself over to the process of believing in Jesus and listening to His Word and having Him guide my hand, I feel as though the pressure is off me now. I tend to think of action movies as exuberant morality plays in which good triumphs over evil. You have to grab life by the throat and squeeze before it grabs you by your neck and breaks it. Own your destiny. In Philadelphia, there's no delineation. They address me as Rocky, for real. They'll say things like, Rocky, do you like this coat? Or, Rock, say hi to my sister. Or, Yo Rock, I know a great restaurant. There's no Sylvester. Even the mayor goes, it's good to have Rocky here today. I consider myself something of a raconteur. I have a rather audacious sense of humor. At the very end, the one person who Rambo should kill, he doesn't kill. He lets it live. Because you can't kill that kind of hypocritical bureaucracy. It goes on forever. Movies are the work of a collective conscience. It takes 500 to 800 people on a movie to complete a vision. If bad decorating was a hanging offense, there'd be bodies hanging from every tree. All good actors are unpredictable, and a little crazy in a good way, because they feel more secure playing other people than themselves. Without the church, it's like having a boat without the rudder. You think you can do it on your own, and this may sound pedestrian or trite, but I'll equate it to this. All my life I've been involved with exercise, but no matter how much, and I know a great deal about the body, you need help. You need a trainer. You need to go to a gym, and you need to have the expertise and the guidance of someone else. You cannot train yourself. I feel the same way about Christianity and what the church is. The church is the gym of the soul. Making a movie is the same as an orchestra. It's moving all the different instruments and the sounds, the kinetic and the auditory and the visual all together. I'm probably the trombone. If you're willing to take the humiliation of sticking your head above the crowd, maybe it's, the pleasure will be worth the pain. Nothing's harder than writing. There's no comparison. With directing, you can bounce a lot of ideas around. There's tremendous support. You've got editors and sound mixers. With writing, it's all you, and it's just crippling when people tear up your pages. I have tons of regrets, but I think that's one of the reasons that push people to create things. Out of their angst, their regret, comes the best from artists, painters, and writers. I thought I had reached a point in life where everything would be smooth. But it is not. It just gets more jagged and pitted and filled with turns that take you into the dark recesses of your mind. It never seems to get easy. My favorite snack would have to be Fritos, no doubt about it. Fritos and mayonnaise. I know. Really healthy, isn't it? Without love, loyalty, desires, passion, courage, dignities, faith, beliefs, and all the other ingredients that go into making the human soul something so elevated that only God knows its limits, we are only shells bobbing aimlessly in a calm sea of mediocrity. And if you can figure that out, please write and explain it to me, because you're a better man than I am. Until America, door to door, takes every handgun, this is what you're gonna have. It's pathetic. It really is pathetic. It's sad. We're living in the dark ages over there. I made some truly awful movies. Stop. Or My Mom Will Shoot was the worst. If you ever want someone to confess to murder, just make him or her sit through that film. They will confess to anything after 15 minutes. I'm more focused and have a greater sense of challenge because I constantly feel the weight of time. I thought marriage was tough. Golf's like going over Niagara Falls in a barrel. It's a psychological game that gets into your blood. I wanted to show I had balls at age 60. Just because society says I'm old doesn't mean that I am. I'm pursuing happiness, even if it makes the people around me unhappy. I watch a lot of news, and I watch musical shows because I think the music of the young people is really their news reports. They let you know how their country is going through their eyes, and about their experiences and the everyday shock of growing up. I respect a woman too much to marry her. I have a lack of fear, whereas in the past the fear of failure was a powerful motivator. Anyway, I have great expectations for the future, but I just don't know if I'm the monarch of all I survey. People think retiring is fun. Well, maybe, but if you have a certain kind of fire inside, there is no end in sight. I am a sensitive writer, actor, and director. Talking business disgusts me. If you want to talk business, call my disgusting personal manager. I'm always looking for a new challenge. There are a lot of mountains to climb out there. When I run out of mountains, I'll build a new one. At the end of the day, Rocky is a love story, and he could never have reached the final bell without Adrian. A lot of actors, and artists in general, never feel secure in love. They always feel everything's going to be taken away from them, professionally and personally. They're extremely emotional and volatile. A lot of guys have muscles. A lot of strong men in this world. I think it's important to show that even under all this strength there's a fragile side, a side that can be affected. Children are the first thing I see in the morning and the last thing I see at night. It hurts me to be away from them for a few hours. It really does. I love them and their girls, so they know how to push my buttons. But I've learned a lot, and I have to thank my wife for that. The man who can best gets along with women is the man who can get along without them. I just want to say that, all you do, no matter how bad your diet is, for the first 6 months or year, I just reduce the amount, even if it's horrible stuff. That you can deal with it. I was very much into buying contemporary art, but I've just decided I want to get rid of it all. Not that it's not great art, but all of a sudden my mood has changed, and I want to go back to 17th and 18th century masters. You have to have an almost boundless reservoir of energy and interest to enter politics, because quite often it's thankless and fruitless and you can't accomplish much. Clichés are what good writing is all about. Because our lives are basically clichés. To me, the most perfect screenplay ever written will be one word, when you finally reduce it down to that. Until then, writing will be an imperfect form of communication. If I just know in my gut that a film is going to work, I'll fight to the death over it, and I convince myself. When a movie is purely a money job, the film doesn't have the same sort of intensity, and the audience almost senses it. At least that's the way I perceive it. So, yeah, the idea is to do something that you truly believe in. The only thing that I haven't done is perform brain surgery on myself. I've been very, very lucky. I've spared Shakespeare undue stress by not doing that. The only thing that I haven't done is perform brain surgery on myself. I've been very, very lucky. I've spared Shakespeare undue stress by not doing that. When I tried to branch out into comedy, I didn't do very well at it, so I went back to doing what I do naturally well, or what the audience expects from me, action pictures. I have 2 lovely sons and some good memories, but I've had a rather tumultuous personal life. It hasn't been dull. I've been the Hiroshima of love. I've been involved in something which was chaotic and insane. All I can say now is that I am, and intend to stay, a single man. A lot of guys don't want to admit that they have a propensity for generosity and for violence. Movies are a whole different ballgame now. It's much more of a business, very scientific. When I saw Hercules, my mind just exploded because I was extremely thin. I was insecure. I literally ran out of the theater and started lifting things, anything I could think of, milk crates. I'm still lifting things. It changed my life. In this day and age, if you're aspiring to be an actor, and you're putting all your eggs in one basket, you could be disappointed. I started out as an actor, but I forced myself to be a writer, even though I wasn't very good at it and had never written. I don't think I ever passed an English course in my life. My first 8 to 10 scripts were pretty horrendous, but I stayed at it until I eventually found a voice and a subject that people were interested in. So, I recommend that you go out and try to be as versatile as possible, writer, actor, producer, and especially director. Once I stopped trying to always do everything my way, and once I asked for God's help, things have truly gone a different direction. Art is the ability to communicate through an intermediary and to convey one's feelings through an isolated object. It's inspiration and incubation. Putting my subjective feelings into an objective form and then onto you for subjective interpretation. I wish I had thought of Velcro muscles myself. I didn't have to go to the gym for all those years, all the hours wedded to the iron game, as we call it. I was on cruise control from 85 to 95, and it was my fault. There were a lot of self-inflicted wounds when I was not doing any original material. I wasn't directing. I wasn't writing. That's not who I am. I never started out to be an action actor. I was an ensemble actor. Rocky was an ensemble film. FIST was an ensemble. Paradise Alley was an ensemble. I really have very little aspirations about acting because I think that probably the best things have come and gone. I would like to focus on writing and directing. I love writing and directing, even though writing can be incredibly painful and lonely. I get great satisfaction from doing it. I think audiences have hit the wall with CGI and special effects. They have seen so many over-the-top events that they can't suspend disbelief. When you're younger, you just want to go out and make your mark in the world, and doing that, quite often, the people that you love the most and the people you should be closest to suffer from estrangement. I'd be gone 9 months a year, so how do you know anyone? When you come home, you are a stranger. I think I came along at an opportune time. I don't know if that would happen anymore, because the whole way of doing business in Hollywood has changed. The action movies changed radically when it became possible to Velcro your muscles on. It was the beginning of a new era. The visual took over. The special effects became more important than the single person. That was the beginning of the end. My life has always been chaotic. From the time I got dressed in the back of a deflated, flat-tired, fish-smelling station wagon for Rocky. It's always been do-it-yourself, kind of like paperclip it together. It took me a long time to be convinced that marriage was right for me because I've come from a long line of broken marriages. My parents divorced, and I had 2 broken marriages myself. I have all kinds of chest injuries. I tore my vein during Rocky 2 and had 60 stitches. If you've seen Rocky Balboa, you'll know how bad they look. I used to tweet, but it's an act of futility. You're not really making any impact, and if you find yourself in a mood when you want to be a bit controversial and you post something, you suddenly realize, oh my God, because you've opened yourself up to a bunch of criticism from strangers. The biggest and most interesting crisis in the world is the human crisis, and it never gets boring. It goes back to Shakespeare. You don't need a gimmick, it's just man against man and their intolerance of each other. I know people get upset and go, they're going to take away the assault weapon. But who needs an assault weapon? Like, really, unless you're carrying out an assault. I started out as an actor, but I forced myself to be a writer, even though I wasn't very good at it and had never written. I don't think I ever passed an English course in my life. My first 8 to 10 scripts were pretty horrendous, but I stayed at it, and stayed at it, until I eventually found a voice and a subject like Rocky that people were interested in. I wish my daughters would box. I'm so worried about the guys coming up to them. I would love them to be able to smack a guy right off a bar stool. Boxing is a great way to vent. I don't know if there is a better way. I think for women too. There is something so primal about it, and it's the best exercise in the world, even if you don't ever get in the ring. A lot of women read male magazines. Of course, a lot of guys read female magazines, but they've got another issue to deal with. But a lot of women read men's magazines and think, oh, this is what these guys are thinking. Studying up on the enemy here. I'm usually taken for a non-intellectual, a person of limited intelligence. I don't know why, but I figure it's because physically I don't look intelligent.